The high-end boutique wheel market is so hot right now. And here's another option for you, the Delta SimTech Evo. This is a loaner unit that was sent a month ago, and I've been using it ever since. I know this channel isn't particularly directed to the higher end of the market, but nonetheless, this is something very interesting, even if some of you will groan, of course, with the price of these types of wheels. These wheels tend to be what they are in terms of price, but anyways, as always, all opinions my own. Delta SimTech wants to bring a high quality, high-end piece of equipment built in the UK with very decent features and the price competitive for a wheel of this segment. The Evo starts at £925 plus VAT. With this double clutch configuration, it is £1,000 plus VAT. There's also an Ace-Tech version of this wheel that will be £25 plus VAT more than this, and that does away with the long cables that we see here, something that is normal for the USB versions. So if you have an Ace-Tech wheelbase, unless you're going to use it on somewhere else, that might be an option for you. The feature set is interesting too. It's a 295mm wheel with 8 buttons, 2 rotary thumbs, 2 7-way funky switches, 4 4-way encoders. So that's an encoder that will be having a left and a right and a click. And if you activate it on a firmware, you can do a click and a turn and a left. So it will be the double layered. Hence, you can have a 4-way switch. In total, with all of the buttons, it will be 42 inputs, plus the shifters, plus the clutches. There's also a 4.3-inch screen with tactile features, fully compatible with SimHub and a configuration software all in the wheel. At the back, there's 2 shifters, as I mentioned, and the clutches in this specific version. And as you can see, the clutch is set at the long travel mode, but you can do away with a couple of bolts here and here, and then you can connect it back in another hole that is inside, and then you can make the clutch a slightly shorter travel. We will have a look at the software just a little bit later, but what you should be doing right now is subscribe to the channel, as I want to get 100,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. In terms of build, this wheel is definitely faultless. The front plate is a 4mm forged carbon, then the enclosure at the back, it is aluminum. So are the switches, the rotary thumb switches, the funky switches, the bottom switches as well. Then you have carbon fiber paddles and shifters, and also see-through buttons, which you can customize in SimHub. I've had a look at the prototype version of this back in Sim Racing Expo 2023, and compared to what it is now, it is really a night and day difference, and that definitely translates into the weight of this wheel, which is 1,300 grams without any adapter or the quick release. So that means in order to run this wheel or any type of high-end wheels for that matter, you should have a direct drive that would be at least, in my opinion, 8 Newton meters. If you do it on a 5 Newton meter Mozart 5 or a CSL or something like that, you can do it, but the force feedback will be very much muted with this. One last point will be the handles. This is some sort of silicone rubber. It is comfortable, but right now it's kind of pasty on the United Kingdom. So I would recommend that you use some sort of gloves with this. Otherwise, it can get sticky in your hands. Looking at the back, we'll have the shifters, which are magnetic, very, very nice. And we also have the clutches, which will be adaptable to you. But also we're going to have, for this version, this adapter plate, which will be at the bottom of the wheel, 3x30, and the extension will be compatible with 50mm and 17mm. I'm using this with a Fanatec quick release. In that case, we will require some sort of adapter plate because this plate won't be compatible by itself with the Fanatec quick release, either 1 or 2. I have a video about it, so if you want to check it out, it will be in the description below. And also because this is the USB version, it will have this USB cable, some sort of XLR to USB cable, which means this will be only compatible with the PC. As expected, because, well, this is a USB wheel with a USB extension on its standard form, we'll be doing some sort of cable management, and it's in reality kind of required when you use a wheel of this type because it's not wireless, it's not powered like the Asetec version. And if you have some sort of CSLDD or Club Sport DD, I would recommend that you get some sort of clips for 80/20, because on the side that will be the rails and you can do your cable management through there. In terms of buttons, all the buttons are incredibly stable, so there's not a lot of movement. Even that includes the regular movement you normally have at this high end for the funky switches. The buttons will have a solid click, and in terms of pressure, they are more tuned. This wheel is more tuned to have a stronger pressure, which I personally enjoy. And then you have a really nice set of clickiness. That includes the shifters, that includes also the rotaries. The rotaries are weighed more, once again, on the heavier side, but they are not so heavy that they are hard to engage. It's just to make sure that you do not press the rotaries by mistake. It's the same at the buttons, the bottom rotaries as well. Very nice weight. But for me, the rub in terms of sound and in terms of usability, it's definitely on the shifter, because the shifter has a start of an engagement that requires some force. In terms of movement, it doesn't have a long movement. It's quite short, but it's short in a good way. And then at the bottom, it has just a little bit of dampening at the end of the movement. So you have a start that is very crisp, then it moves to a smoother stage, and I really like that. This is almost as good, and I still think that the other one is better, as it is almost as good as the Fanatec M4 GT3 wheel, which for me still has the best shifters in the market right now. Unlike that BMW M4 GT3, and I've said that on the review, that wheel, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of value for sim racing, but this has, and considering this still is cheaper. As this wheel requires at least a free version of SimHub to run, it means it can't be run on a PlayStation or Xbox. The files will be provided to you, and then you have to install the files manually like you would do with basically any other wheel, or if you want to install any other thing on a SimHub. The software that goes into SimHub is very easy to use. There's a couple of things that you can do inside. One of the things is to change the color of the LEDs. You can change it to red, green, blue, or purple, or whatever you want to do. You can always do your own thing. You can also install a dashboard. I'm using Lovely dashboards. I think the dashboards on Lovely is incredibly good. You can also leave the idle behavior. You can request for the Delta Dash to be provided for you. I like the Delta Dash idle behavior. It gives you this splash screen, loading splash screen that is quite interesting. But also you need to do something inside, which is inside screen settings. Make sure that you have the experimental and then Delta control panel, so you can access the Delta control panel and change the settings of this wheel in the firmware on the fly. But that requires you to be inside a session. Inside any session, it can be a Assetto Corsa, race room, whatever is compatible with SimHub. If you want to access the firmware, you press this button on the left and this button on the left for a few seconds. And then you have the edit mode active. The LEDs will change colors, and then you have access to this. So the menu will be on this rotary. You can change your byte point mode. This will be on tens, this will be on units, and this will be on percentage points. You can do the analog calibration mode by pressing this button as well, and then you calibrate it if you want to. Then you can also move to dual clutch, or you can move it to dual axis. And then you can also change if you want a layered encoder or a standard encoder on the left thumb. And then you have the edit mode. And if you want to get out of the edit mode, just long press the red button, and that's it. It's incredibly self-explanatory going on these menus, and it just highlights how nicely everything is set up for you. As the Evo doesn't have the same amount of physical buttons as, for example, the Asetec Forte, it's good that the bottom rotaries will have their own input as well. And if you use, of course, the four-way switch, it will have another layer of it. That means you can have more buttons than just these 4 up on the top. Reaching the thumbing quarters is easy, and while the rotaries are on the stiffer side, they aren't stiff enough to be hard to engage. The shifters are also incredibly expertly spaced, so you don't have the situation where your middle finger and your indicator is either curling or overextending too much. This is actually the perfect way to engage them, because your fingers will be in a relaxed position without, stressing them too much, because everything is laid out in a very ergonomic way. Even the girth of the handles is perfect for the hands of my size. The spacing, the weight of the buttons, the clickiness, of course, it really makes me think that Delta SimTech, while doing this wheel, they really thought about pretty much everything. And considering this is, well, one of their first wheels, and this is at the moment the top of their lineup, I think this is a really good job. As for the screen is really, really good. It's bright enough when you're driving. As you can see, also the backlights or the LEDs at the back, they're also very bright, but you do need to engage the high power mode for the LEDs. The LEDs at the top for the RPMs, they're also very, very bright, and they respond incredibly fast. The Evo then is a very straightforward piece of equipment. It is more on the minimalistic side. It doesn't have a lot of inputs. It has just enough inputs, even though I would prefer to see a button here, or maybe a couple of more buttons at the bottom. It is very well constructed. This is really built like a tank. It doesn't budge. Everything is well put together. It also is extremely comfortable. Very good ergonomics, perfect for my hands. But because I know this channel isn't really directed to the higher end of the market, some viewers will scoff at the price. This is definitely expensive, but if you consider what this actually is, it is a high-end, handmade, boutique kind of wheel. In terms of price, in terms of features, this is actually very well marketed and very competitive in terms of price. And the sad part of it, because this is a loaner unit, I'm gonna be sad when I need to let this go. Anyways, if you want to use a third-party wheel on a Fanatec wheelbase, just like I have here, check the video. It should be on this side. And also subscribe to the channel, press like, and become a member. You'll be part of the credits. See you next time.